Hey, what's going on, y'all? Welcome to another episode of Adventures in DevOps. And joining me in the studio today, my new routine co-host, Warren Parad. What's going on, Warren?
Hey, thanks, Will. At some point that's going to get old, and I'll be the old co-host, and we'll have to come up with a new tagline for me.
I know. I was just thinking that, and I was like, damn, I didn't come up with anything new to say, so I had to go with the old stale one. I'll work on that before next week's episode. I promise.
You didn't have enough homework to do. You've got one more thing now.
Right. It's good to keep busy. But also joining us today, we have the co-founder and CTO of Apiiro, Yonatan Eldar. Welcome, Yonatan.
Thanks for having me.
Hey, I'm excited to have you here, and I'm looking forward to this episode because I've got two security experts here in the studio with me, and I think security is one of those really, it's a really odd specialty to have, because it's one that I feel like from a business perspective, like businesses, let's just be honest here, businesses tend to prioritize customer-facing features and cheer about those much more than they do security work. But the end customers themselves, I don't think they ask for, like the end users of my applications don't ask for security-related stuff. They just assume that I'm doing it. And so from a developer's perspective, it's really hard to feel like security gets the prioritization that it needs, because I think everyone just assumes that you're doing that because that's what you do as a good steward of your code. And so I'm interested to talk about that and how y'all view that, and get some actionable tips that help us all bring security up and like make it the first class citizen that it should be. So with that rambling intro out of the way, Yonatan, how did you get to this point where you're the co-founder and CTO of Apiiro?
Oof, that's a long road. Like professionally, it's been 20 years, starting in the IDF in Israel. But even before that, like there are many developers who are, tinkerers, trying to pick apart things, figure out how it works, trying to reverse engineer stuff, whether it's toasters or applications, or back in the day, like I don't know, Prince of Persia or whatever, trying to figure out how stuff works. So I think this was the start for me. I've been working on many startups since then, quite a few. And it took me 20 years or maybe 20 minus 5 years since we started Apiiro, to start as a founder with Dan Plotnik, my partner, who is the CEO. After we worked together on a totally different thing, which is also security, but in a different field altogether, because security is really, really broad,
Yeah, for sure. I think it's one of those that it's easy to get specialized in a specialized specialty when you talk about security.
Yeah, there's a lot of niches in security. Now people are saying cyber. There are a lot of terms. There are people who are working on EDR, people who are working like in pen test, people who are working on AppSec for 30 years. There are various fields that are, everything is related, but there are many specialties in the industry. So there are commonalities, like the cat and mouse game with like good people versus bad people. It happens a lot, and it takes different shapes in the network security domain, where Idan and myself, we worked back in the day in Microsoft and in other places, but also in AppSec, and also in IoT, and in very like diverse like sub-cyber terms.
Right on. And so with Apiiro, you're working to provide visibility and actionable context to the consumers of your platform. What does that actually mean? What kind of things do you help someone do or accomplish?
There's an evolution in AppSec, in application security. It started with like very like technology related products. At first there was SAST, finding vulnerabilities in your code, and it evolved, and there came OSS security, SCA, finding vulnerabilities in open source, and then software supply chain security, that finding stuff like this is more DevOps proper, right? If the GitHub configuration allows you to do such and such, as an example, and various other fields, right? Secrets detection, etc. So it all evolved, and now it's like got a proper abbreviation, ASPM, Application Security Posture Management, which like takes everything into one single like UI, or one single source of truth where you can see what goes on in your applications. And we've come a long way for Gartner to coin that term, and for companies to understand that having 7 different specialized tools is not a good way to understand what goes on. There's a lot of reasons, but I think that the main one is you don't have context, right? You have 30,000 alerts, 20,000 came from that SaaS tool, 5,000 came from that OSS tool, and now what? I have 3 people in my AppSec team covering 13,000 developers. We have 1,200 pull requests a day. What do I do? So to answer your question, like this is the context maybe. To answer your question, like we look at it in like 3 layers. First is visibility, knowing what you have. I always say you'll be amazed how developers, CTOs, CEOs, CIOs, AppSec people, they don't have a clue what they have. As long as you have more than maybe 10, 15, 20 developers, not to mention 1,000 or 30,000, you don't know. You don't know which databases, what technologies, how many platforms for OAuth you are using, how many languages, yada, yada. All of this, you can't fathom. It's too much. So you can go from there to what APIs do I have? Do I have GraphQL even? I don't know. Does it go through some Nginx? What's the technology that says don't go, no go? Like, I don't know. So first, visibility. Like, what do I have? Like, we call it an inventory, right? The second phase is, as I said, you have 30,000 alerts, findings, whatever. So prioritize. Tell me, what should I focus on right now? What will bring most value to my company? What will stop an attack? What will be worth my time? What will save us the most money, etc. So prioritization is the second thing. After that, remediation, and after remediation, like help me find who's the right person to talk to, because I have, again, 13. How much did I say? 13,000 developers. Who's the right person who can say this API should actually go to the internet and download such and such, yada, yada. Who I can say, should I go and ask? So this is remediation. And after that, we, like the advanced customers of Apiiro, do more of managing and prevention for such things. So they employ workflows that automatically, whenever a certain risk goes above a certain threshold, then they will start a certain trigger, maybe a pen test, maybe a code review, etc. So this is how we help people like 3 people versus 13,000 people maybe try to get a hold of application security.
Right on. Yeah. So a big part of that is just, well, like you said, just setting context, like taking all of this information and figuring out what parts of it's relevant, which parts are urgent, and just trying to turn it into something actionable so you don't feel like you're overwhelmed and destined to never succeed.
Yeah, it's really like, I think personally, one of the most frustrating things that I faced in that context is people saying shift left, which is like, it's a nice term. I get it. But if it says, put all the burden on me, the developer or the DevOps engineer, then someone else do the job. Why should I be the one to handle everything, right? So shift left is really important, but you have to do it right. If you have 6,000 findings from your automated certain process of static analysis, and you're shifting it left, you have to really chew it up and spit out only the 3, the 5, whatever actionable findings that I can handle. If you give me 100, it will be deprioritized in my. I have features to develop, but
Right.
if you'll say these certain vulnerabilities, it might have false positives. It's fine, but if it's 2 out of 3, I'm fine with it because I see the value. I can see I'm helping my company be more productive. But if these 3, let's say, vulnerabilities are in APIs that I know that are not in test code, they are in some application that is facing the internet, right? So it's exploitable, perhaps, maybe not, but it has a certain it might be exploitable. And I know the code, right? It's like people from my team has written the code. And more than that, I'm a security champion, right? Because my team has 100 developers, but the AppSec gave that task to me because they know that I'm well-versed in security stuff, right? In that case, go on shift left. I will make it right. If you have a false positive, I'll help you be better. But I will fix it, and I will accept the 2 out of 3 false positives. It's fine.
I got a hypothetical for you here. So, like, I know that there are these other platforms out there that are compliance-driven checklist aggregators, right? They're for SOC 2 or ISO, and they collect a lot of things from individual sources within your company, your engineering organization, to help you achieve passing some sort of certification or regulation. But it feels like your company actually focuses on the value of security there, right? Like, actually, rather than some sort of checkbox approach, it really is, these things are important to solve, and not just to achieve a particular pass.
In my that's a great question. As my hat as a CTO, I have to go through SOC 2, Type 2,
Yeah, of course.
ISO. I have to do that, and it's important too, right? Like showing our customers that we take it seriously, even if some questions in those compliance frameworks are kind of mundane and seem like that they didn't adapt to 2024 maybe. But these two are important. So in general, we do have a module for questionnaires. There are a lot. By the way, I'm not sure from the audience here, what's the average size of a company that they work for, from independent contractors to one of 13,000 developers, maybe, or 30,000. But for the larger companies, they do have a lot of compliance going on. SOC 2 type, SOC 2 ISO, and also they have all sorts of controls for you can't change a certain area of the code base without answering 200 questions. So this is an area that we also help our customers, and do it smart. Like if we can automatically answer, as you said, Warren, 30, 70, 60% of the questions, because they are code related or developer related, we can easily answer that. But for the rest of the 40% of the questions, you can go and answer. Then you can automate the process.
I see. I mean, and I'm just really intrigued here. Like, it sounds like you could almost utilize Apiiro to replace whatever automation platform you have for SOC 2 findings and utilize that to actually achieve it. Is that accurate?
Well, SOC 2, like, let's say it might require you to present that you have some sort of like a rule set of how you do backup and restore. Okay?
Yeah.
So this is an area that we won't help you with that.
I see.
You'll still also have to go through I don't know, some sort of an audit vendor that will give you the stamp. You'll have to do that. I won't save you from that one.
Yeah.
But for the real answers, like that are expensive in terms of time and money to gather, right? They will ask you, show me evidence that developers, maybe statistical evidence, but that developers are going through such and such process in order to trigger some other, let's say, pen test or whatever. Okay, and all of these things, like many of these things, we can derive from what we analyze, because we analyze every commit in your GitHub, Bitbucket, GitLab, whatever you use, Perforce. We analyze every commit, every pull request, every Jira ticket, Azure DevOps ticket, whatever. There's a lot of data there. And the last thing I want, like our customers to do, is go through tedious like exports of things and go with their eyes over thousands of rows and figure out stuff by themselves. Like, we want to help as much as we can. Hope I answered the question.
Yeah, no, I mean, you said something really interesting to me, and I think maybe interesting for the listeners as well, is like, where do you hook into the process? And I got this idea, maybe there is an integration that happens if I change some database through Terraform, that I'm already alerted that this could have security implications. Is that accurate? Interesting.
Yeah. So if you go, let's say that you're an advanced shop, right? And you have everything via Terraform. Okay, so this is a good case. We at least hook up into your source control manager. Okay, if you're more advanced, we will hook into your Jira, maybe your Kubernetes environment in AWS or Google or Azure. If you're more advanced than that, then to your API gateway, API security tool. And maybe your security scanner. Maybe you have Snyk, maybe you have Mend, maybe you have like dozens of others, right? And we take all that data and crunch it up together. But at the very minimum, we analyze your code. You can opt out. You can choose what code to analyze and what not, obviously. But assuming that you have Terraform, then yes, we will alert if, let's say, a certain application shouldn't be connected to the internet, and maybe you hooked it up into an ingress in GKE, whatever that is connected to the internet, then you can automate that process and put a guardrail, right? So I should have mentioned maybe before that we have like a concept that we call governance, which by default it comes with a certain rule set, but you are free to change, to delete rules, to add rules, to tailor it to your specific needs. But you can say, you can define what's a material change, as we say, right? Someone added an API, it might not be material to you, but if someone added an API that is connected to the internet and it is exposing a certain type of data, then maybe this is dangerous because whatever in your realm, this is what happens, right? And then you can say, let's define a workflow. If such and such happens, then open a ticket, block the PR, don't allow a developer to change the Terraform module X, Y, or Z in such a way, right? And so you can control that. Usually people start with understanding what they have, and then they evolve, like their process evolves into putting more and more prevention guardrails like that one.
I think automated feedback to the engineering teams when they're performing something that matches one of these governance rules. I feel like there's going to be a bunch of platform DevOps related people out there that are jumping for joy over this functionality, honestly.
Yeah, this is as a developer. Like I have to. People enjoy, like people usually say, eat your own dog food, right?
Yeah,
it's an important concept. So for us, it's like in the extreme, right? Because our platform is for AppSec teams and developers. Developers are a bunch of people who are really hard to please. Okay, let's put it that way. And like again, like developers are used to tools like compilers or IDEs where they get, I don't know, 5 nines of accuracy, right? The compiler doesn't make mistakes. Usually. It happens, but it's really rare.
That's a good point, actually.
Usually it's your fault as a developer. If you see an error, it's not the compiler. So again, going back to the example from before, like going through 6,000 alerts from a certain security platform is not acceptable for a developer. So we really make an effort to cater the needs of developers when we get to the developer, like the DevOps, as you said, the DevOps engineer who is jumping out of joy. We are working with our customers to make sure that the process, we will start with visibility. We understand what goes on. And then when they, let's say, automate jolting with electricity, the developer who did such a bad thing, do it only when you're sure, right? Or let's say more realistically, like opening a ticket for a certain team when such a thing happens is only when they are certain, right? There's always mistakes, it's fine, but we really advise customers to evolve into it, and if you see that you can not ask your DevOps team to be always, they will be alert, but don't go every day at 5 p.m. go through all pull requests and make sure there is no such and such, right? Don't do that. Automate that, right? This is an easy thing, let's say. So yeah, with care, but as much automation as we can is really the ROI is really clear for the customer.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, and I think that's really a great approach as well, because by making sure that you're relaying the information to only the people who can actually do something about it, you're going to minimize that tendency that we have to just turn off things that we determine to be background noise. Like you mentioned, if you get 10,000 security alerts, we're going to turn it off as background noise, even though they might not be. But if you provide specific information and remediation steps for it, and it's like, oh, that's something I can do, and I think that actually lends a lot of long-term stability to your overall security process.
For sure. Also, there's I think something that is, people tend to consolidate certain tasks. Let's say there's as an AppSec team, let's say I get a report every day, every week with a list of vulnerabilities, yada. I might say, hey, John, you're the remediation guy. Here's the list. Go every day, again and again, go through it, make sure it's fine. you might tick some boxes. You'll say to the ISO person from the auditor, you'll say, I have a process. Here's John. Here's my vulnerability person. I'm good. And you'll get the V there. But like, at least in some cases, not all the time, but at least in some cases, the shift left here is really substantial, right? Out of the 6,000 vulnerabilities, you might say these 4,000 are irrelevant because they are in test code, they are in old repositories that are not deployed anywhere. Forget about it. And so, and you narrow it down and you get to the 27 actionable vulnerabilities that, like, tending to will bring impact to the company. And then you'll say, for each one of the 27, who's the right person? And here comes the concept that I like the most here, which is code ownership. In Apiiro, we have collective code ownership, but when a certain problem arises, there's always the one person that knows about this thing the most. And it's not, naively the last person who touched that piece of code. Right? It's more usually reality is more complicated than that. So we make huge efforts in analyzing the behavior of every developer, what code they are touching, in which way do they, there's a difference between the CTO doesn't know well enough and he does refactoring and he makes the code cleaner because he wants to. There's a difference between that guy and someone else who went and replaced the authentication mechanism from user password to Okta integration, right? There's a huge difference between those two. I'm not saying the latter is better, but that person is way more capable in saying, hey, this vulnerability is real, it's actionable, this is the way to solve it. Maybe some other person will solve it, but this is the way. And this is how we can, get to do remediation much, much faster and cheaper.
That's super cool. So you're actually building like a historical audit of the actions of the people on the platform, so you can identify what their expertise is and figure out who the right person is without doing like an @channel in a Slack group with 13,000 people in it.
Yeah, exactly. And we have a thing where we I feel more like, let's say, it's maybe a bad word, like more privileged than my previous self. When we did in previous company, we did network security. We analyzed network traffic. So we connected to a switch in the server farm, and we tapped to the traffic and we analyzed it. But it started T=0. It started when we connected. Right now, we are privileged as an AppSec company where we connect via API to, let's say, GitHub, and then we can analyze the entire history of a Git repository from 10 years ago, right? So in that sense, we have, from when we start, we have a lot of information about the code behavior, who's doing what, and we analyze the behavior of every developer, and we say, this subset is what we call a security champion, right? So some of our customers have actually, using that, they have built a security champion program. So they have, let's say, 3 AppSec people on the team, who's in charge of the entire company, and they have 150 development teams, and they chose 1 or 2 people from every division who will be like their ambassadors into security. So when there's an issue with product X, they can say, hey, team, we've talked before, we've taught you about our processes, there's such and such problem, please advise, right? And he's 1 out of 70 people. So they don't need to go through proper channels with the management and do like a heavy thing. They have people they can talk to, and it's not bureaucratic. It's data driven, which is really like it proves helpful in many cases.
Right on. That's super cool. One of the things you touched on a little bit earlier was talking about the context and the visibility of it. And you kind of mentioned that, fixing these vulnerabilities gives you the ability to say, hey, we prevented or we blocked this before it was exploited. How much value do you think there is in that by showing the things, the ability that you had to stop something before it happened and kind of elevate security work to that of like feature requests, because everyone gets excited over the new feature requests. Do you think that showing the security vulnerabilities you've remediated helps bring some awareness to that?
For sure. So I think coming back to something I think you said maybe before we started recording, security is a thing like everybody wants it to not exist until something hits a fan somewhere, right? And then, oh my God, we had to do such and such before. I wish 3 months ago when we designed the feature, we would have thought about it. I wish during testing, we would go through the list of things that could go wrong and find out about it. But the reverse of it is everybody wants to celebrate new features and sell it to customers. It's a hard bargain sometimes for security teams to prove their worth to the organization, because nobody pays attention to quiet, right? Like the CISO can come to a board meeting, or the AppSec engineer can come to a certain meeting, all hands for the company, and say, hey, for 7 months, no incident, everything is quiet on my front. They might say, okay, let's reduce the team.
Right, exactly.
Yeah. Life of security is really hard that way. But I think that it's a game of numbers. Proving, let's say, again, when people are used to false positives, and it's true both for network security, intrusion alerts, whatever, DLP, viruses, for everything, including AppSec. When people are used to false positives, they're not paying attention. Like everything is noise.
Yeah, definitely.
We have a concept of funnel. Where we are showing you have starting with 30,000 alerts, and via various steps, you go to a lower and lower and lower number until you get to a manageable amount of things that you can actually work on. And if this is the focus, and in each team, it's a little bit different. For some is is it connected to is it exposed to the internet? Yes, no. It really reduces. For some, everything is exposed to the internet. So there are differences, but as long as the number goes down and it becomes manageable and real, then the teams pay more attention. When you come as an AppSec to the dev team, you're not wasting their time. They feel once they do, like there's I think there's people underestimate developers or DevOps engineers in the industry, where some say that they don't care about security because it's someone else's concern. I don't think it's true. Maybe that's just my opinion, but I don't think it's true. And if like AppSec came to developers with like a small number of real things, then the developers will be excited to deliver on it, and they will feel that they're building a stronger product. By the way, the same thing is true also with performance and other things that are not like purely like features. Performance is a feature, security is a feature. I really believe in it. So I think as long as the numbers are manageable, I think people will treat it the same way as features, and they can even celebrate it.
Yeah, for sure. I think, especially like if you are just trying to say, okay, we got to get a grip on our security, and you're working with a code base that's been around, for a year or more. The first time you run that security scan, it's going to be overwhelming, and that your first, at least for me, my first instinct is to look at the findings and go, yeah, that's a problem for next sprint, and then move on. And next year I'll have the same conversation with myself. So I think there's really a lot of value in saying, okay, let's just put this in context, and here are the key things that you can focus on this sprint that'll actually make a difference.
Yeah, I mean, you're really talking about curation there. And I think that's one of the things that a lot of tools in the DevOps space overall get wrong. They think it's like a lack of information. They're all about exposing as many things as possible, as if that's where the value is. And I think the tool we haven't said but kept talking about here is sort of like Dependabot on GitHub, which spams every single thing. And it's very difficult to know whether or not there is value in any one of those alerts. So realistically, you want it to be curated. That's where the value is, right? Having not only information, but relevant and useful and correct information, right? That's prioritized.
Yeah, exactly. Like this is our claim to fame, actually, because we're saying like ASPM is the abbreviation, and we say deep ASPM because we really believe that just aggregating alerts, putting them, displaying them in a nice table, which streams nicely, and putting nice graphs on top. It's like I don't want to sound disrespectful, but as you said right now, Warren, putting context into that data is really crucial in order to allow prioritization and remediation. So when we say deep, I'll give you an example. When we say deep, we analyze the code, right? We analyze the Jira tickets. We read all the fields. We analyze. We know what's an API. We know what's a data model, and if it's saved to the database, if it's exposed via that API or that API. We know if a certain like code element is in a certain module, which might be a part of a repository. There might be a monorepo, might be a certain application that has 17 different modules from 6 different repositories, some in GitHub and some in Bitbucket and some, I don't know, from somewhere else. So when we see a vulnerability, it might be a secret that we detected, secret in code. It might be a vulnerability that came from Checkmarks or Sneak or someone else. We know a lot of context around it. Okay, so if it's part of an API, we know a lot about that API. If you connected to Akamai, then we can say, okay, that API is exposed in that cluster and is getting bombarded right now in production. So we try, as more and more things get connected, we add more context into it. So it's really, really important to inject that context into those lists of vulnerabilities or material changes, because asking the developer to do the work is not realistic, right? We have customers with, I think the most has 40-something thousand repositories.
Oh wow!
That's a number that I don't think a human being can fathom in terms of, like, there's no intuition around it. So you have to have that knowledge modeled somewhere.
I mean, I do have some intuition there that microservices went wrong somewhere, but aside from that, I mean, you bring up also an interesting aspect here, which is information about the likelihood of these vulnerabilities actually being a problem. And I think this is a difficult area to answer. Like, you can look at some code, even with the context, and know that there is a security problem there. Maybe it's open to SSRF, server-side request forgeries, or something on the UI side that's open to cross-site scripting. But it's, I've been doing research, and I just cannot find actual numbers on the number of, say, data breaches there are. Because actually detecting that it's happened and knowing that a change that you've made has actually stopped one is really a challenge. And I assume that it's not even something that you would be able to know about, right?
We do have some statistics for a lot of
interesting,
but I can say easily that nation state terms of like level of hacking might utilize or take advantage of some sort of vulnerability that could be found in code and might help you to find your way through after 4 months of an attack, like doing various things in order to get to a certain crown jewel type of information. It happens, but many more times some person has connected the wrong wires and opened the I don't know, some proxy server connected to the wrong network, and like maybe it's via Terraform or ClickOps, or maybe a certain API that is supposed to be under authorization is actually without, because like a bug in the code. These type of things are not immune to bugs in code. And you might have like a huge wall, a firewall and Okta and whatever in front of your application that prevents the most brilliant hacker to pass through. But your API doesn't require authorization. You can just approach it and inject things into a database or pull data from the database. So I think what we see in various companies is like evolving from the notion that we have X vulnerabilities, let's solve every vulnerability, right? And evolving into, let's do a threat model, analyze what I have in the most important applications or the most sensitive applications, which is another area that we help with. But let's focus on those. And in those, let's understand what's the attack vector. And there we will say what types of actions we think we need to do. Maybe make sure there are no exposed secrets. Maybe make sure that the APIs don't do things that they shouldn't do. Maybe it's super duper critical. Let's make sure we have 0 vulnerabilities and do everything we can. But not for everything. So this is really important in terms of time and effort that people put into it.
Does that mean that you're actually also able to investigate the sort of transitive dependencies of source code, of package managers that are being utilized?
Yeah, actually, yeah, we do. So open source is I'm assuming you mean open source, but
not necessarily. But yeah, I mean, right? I mean, they could be internal packages that another team has published, or obviously code that comes from outside, for sure.
Yeah. Okay. So we have a distinction between external and internal packages. Whether you publish it via an internal NuGet or Maven or something else inside your organization, or even if you have a package that you copy and pasted into some other area. I think for me the more interesting thing in terms of like developing a product is you have a certain module that is shared between various applications, right? So you have the classic example is an infrastructure package that has utilities or ways to connect to your central user service or something like that. And it's being used in like 3 different versions of that are being used in 17 different applications.
Yeah.
So what's the impact of Warren going and changing a certain threshold of, password strength in that package? What's the impact? If it's on 17 applications, it might be more substantial, right? So, and it could go through more than one hop of analysis. So we're doing really interesting things in that area. And it's hard, like, computationally, if you think about it.
Yeah, for sure.
So, Warren, you're the CTO of a security auth company. How do you, like, obviously security is like your forefront of your company. How do you approach this whenever you're building and deploying your product?
Oh, definitely don't ask me that question.
Sorry, should we have the editor cut this part out?
No, I mean it's totally fine. I mean, realistically, we are definitely looking for products that, like Yonatan's got here to review. I think a lot of the problem is that many products in the space fall into this sort of uncanny valley where they're either unnecessary alerts that don't really tell us anything. We've definitely gone through the sneaks and dependent bots, code QLs of the world, and as well as looked at the ones that review stuff for SOC 2 and ISO, but they're mostly checkbox driven security and don't really focus on actually finding real problems. So I think realistically, it's on us to do this investigation most of the time manually. I mean, obviously using the tools that are available to make these decisions. Now, I think we have a lot of benefit over some other companies given the size that we are at, much smaller. So it's not like we have 47,000 repositories that we've got. I think the number is under 1,000. And most of them are not services. Yeah. Well, I mean, there's just an amount of overhead as far as cognitive overload that teams will have to deal through. So more repositories can only be managed by more people. And that breaks down as size increases. So, I mean, realistically, there are things that you just don't want to have to deal with. Now, in my position, what I've really focused on is what are the platforms or tools that are out there that help eliminate a whole class of problems. So classes of problems can be eliminated by, I mean, me personally, I'd say get away from Kubernetes, but really virtual machines in general. While it may seem like it's easy to spin them up, the number of security concerns from my standpoint is just massive there. Just patch schedules, et cetera, even for things that are 0 day, right? It's so much easier to delegate that to a potential cloud provider to get around those. Another thing that we're leading with, I'm not sure when this is going to be available in production, is allowing our customers to sign the data that they're sending to us. That means that we have fidelity over, whether or not that data has actually been changed. Not necessarily access, but specifically, since we are in the auth space, we do care about when it's been changed. And so there are things like this that we consider novel. But realistically, it's about finding those tools that help us elevate what we're utilizing to another level.
Yeah, and I think that's like a unique problem because you do have like a limited number of people on your team, but literally an unlimited number of security problems, so
yeah, for sure. That's always going to be a trouble. I think this goes for everything. Focus on your core competency, whatever that is, and find a way to eliminate or at least delegate those concerns elsewhere. So every time one of those comes up, find a company that helps you eliminate the broadest class of them, or transition to a different stack or something like that where you don't have those issues, because you will never solve every problem. And I think often you may hear things like, well, we can't depend on another company offering a critical component for us because what happens if it's down? What happens if there's an issue there? I mean, like, you should trust the security experts to get that right, more so than, I mean, there's no difference between the set of engineers that they're hiring and the ones that you can hire. And they're probably focused on this, right? We're focused on hiring people that do care about that security aspect, just as Yonatan's focused on this as well, I'm sure, right? You hire people that understand this part of platform management and security to go forward, and you're not going to be able to do it as effectively, unfortunately. Time and resources.
Yeah, for sure.
We at Apiiro, we do have an infinite amount of time and resources.
That's their USP there, right there. You heard it there first.
Right. So a lot of times with sort of continuing on what you were saying there, Warren, there's there's three models of solving a problem. There's do it yourself. There's get someone to tell you what to do, or there's just hire someone to do it for you. And so, Yonatan, what's the entry level do it yourself version of handling this? Obviously your Apiiro is hey, we're going to collect all the data and put it in context and prioritize it for you. But what's the entry level version of that probably most of us are actually trying to do, but unsuccessfully, that would tell us, oh man, there's got to be a better way?
Oof. You mean how would a company like a software shop would do what we do manually, without?
Yeah.
So people, more people, essentially. Yeah. So we see that, and I understand the when you're facing a certain amount of work, then you can either focus a team on it and do it one person for a small shop or one team for a larger shop that handles the load for everyone. And there's the companies that distribute the load on the developers. I think the most important thing to understand, maybe a marker that might tell you that this thing got out of hand, is if hopefully you're asking your developers how they are doing, and if they feel that their job is going well. So if they say 20%, 30%, 70% of my time is going after things that I don't see any value coming out of, this is a good marker that you might want to change the process. Either use it like a platform like Apiiro or maybe something else. Either that, or don't do it. Sometimes it's better to take the leap and not go through a certain process. Save 10% of your 100 developers time. That's 10 developers. 10 developers can bridge the gap and bring either more value, more features, or more security. So either use the right tool for the job, or maybe do less of it, of the noise. Sometimes it's better than bringing everything to a halt.
I mean,
Gotcha.
that's probably a really great point there, actually, using the right tool for the job. And I don't think that could be said enough, because, to answer a little bit more of your question, Will, I've seen let's build our own sort of internal strategy for automatically updating versions of packages, for instance, right?
Yeah.
And it's well, you're building this yourself. Why are you building the tool versus using something that's way more intelligent at actually finding where the security vulnerabilities are and focus on that one? And I think there's the other one I've seen, which I also am not a fan of, is the replicate all the external packages in the world locally in your own, package repository. Because unless you have a team that is expert in reviewing that, or a tool that's actually going to do it, you're not really doing anything other than having out-of-date versions that are available. So you're actually almost hurting yourself more than you're helping by using one of these. Because it's not solving a problem of security, it's solving a problem of anything, reliability, or where the single point of failure is, right? It's not a highly reliable package manager out in the world that has security teams dedicated to finding vulnerabilities. It's, some tool off the shelf that you're deployed in your own infrastructure, which is out of date.
Yeah, I think also this is a great example of sometimes not understanding the trade-off. Usually, most things, maybe in life, but especially in our field, there's a trade-off. Like if you're saying don't, like I have a certain version of package X that is not vulnerable, then let's freeze it in time and never ever upgrade it because there might be a vulnerability. There's a trade-off there, right? Both functionally and maybe it does have a vulnerability, but it's unknown right now. I'm not saying like for everything newer is better, but there's always a trade-off. So yeah, I think that like what you said is really, really true. If you're doing it yourself and like inventing things that are not your core business, then be really careful because you're probably not best of breed. Usually.
No, I mean, no. If it's for true, I mean, I think there's another problem there, which is you don't know whether or not you're doing it right. So you're going through the motions of things, right? You're even if maybe updating the versions is the right thing, but it could just as easily be the case where it's not, and you're actually having a negative impact overall. So you're not doing the research to understand what the best practice trends are, and you're using your own sort of heuristics from your own experiences, which they're still valid, right? But just in a small niche compared to what the collective wisdom says, and going about that, in that way, which may lead you to, oh yeah, we need to automatically roll all versions of all packages all the time, or we need to freeze all of them. And I think both of them are equally problematic in some way.
Yeah, one of the other things, you mentioned hire or use the people who are best at that. I think one of the things that I see common with that is whenever you go to, like you say, okay, I shouldn't be writing an authentication package myself. That's a solved problem that's been solved by people way smarter than me. So you go out and you start looking at available packages. Like part of that research is understanding who the expert really is and digging in, like dig into their GitHub repo. Is it being updated frequently? How many committers are working on this? Because if you find an authentication package that was updated 3 years ago by one person and hasn't been touched since, that may not be an improvement over your current authentication layer.
Yeah, for sure.
I mean, I'd be curious what Yonatan actually has, if he has any information about this. Like, are there heuristics about update frequency or the type of packages that lend themselves, especially in the open source world, to being more vulnerable or more secure?
Yeah, so really interesting, especially right now. So in Apiiro, you can see a lot of like interesting properties about open source packages. Okay, so I think, Will, you mentioned some of the most important ones, like if it's maintained or not maintained. There are other things as well. But right now, we just published, like I think a week ago, like our research team found a lot of malicious code in many GitHub repositories. And some of the GitHub repositories, like it made a lot of waves.
Yeah, I heard about this.
Some of the GitHub repositories are really things that you would, like at first glance, you wouldn't say there's something fishy here, right? A lot of maintainers, it's being maintained, released regularly. So I think, not to be too cynical, but I don't think you can trust anything right now.
I'm fully with you. Actually, I was just thinking about this. Like, whatever metric you're going to use, just think about how it's going to be potentially abused, right? If it's maintainers or updates or issues, you could easily clone an existing package out there on GitHub, have the same number of issues, copy everything one-to-one, and then make just a small little malicious change in the package somewhere, and post install or just for production runtime, and also publish it to NuGet, npm, wherever. And you would never tell the difference unless someone actually investigated that source code. So those sorts of heuristics may not even be valuable.
Yeah, for sure. But the same way as it's hard to get like a good grasp over 40,000 repositories in your organization.
Yeah.
Which there's not a lot of eyes going through that code base. But in let's say React, JS in the internet. There's a lot of people like going through it, but even that repository is really large, and there are dark places within that repository that people like for years didn't pay attention to. So when you get big data, it's really like it's easier to hide in plain sight sometimes than if there's a 2-file repository and to take all of that. So you really need the tools, the machines to do the work for you.
No, I mean, that actually gives me some flashbacks to, I think it was a few years ago, there was a bunch of academic centers that were intentionally making malicious changes to like Linux Foundation source code for the kernel, as well as other things, just to prove that you could get malicious code into an open source project under false pretenses. And so like, that's pretty ridiculous.
Yeah.
Yeah, I remember that. That was kind of wild.
Yeah. So nothing's off the table when it comes to where problems could be. And if you look at the lots of issues that show up in public repositories, like they're not necessarily people that know fundamentally every single aspect that's going on there. Pull requests that get opened are no one has full understanding of how all the packages interact with each other. So who is even able to validate that? I think at this point you pretty much need to rely on some sort of tool to do this for you.
Right on. Cool. So I want to ask both of you this question because you both have strong security backgrounds. For someone who's just starting to put focus on their security footprint, what's your best piece of advice on where to start? We'll start with Yonatan.
Okay. So without qualifying if it's a small company or a large company or like one developer, I think the most important thing to get a grasp on is like inventory, what I have. I think this is the fundamental part here. By the way, as a developer, you might want to reduce it as much as you can. Get rid of what you don't really need. And in large scales, it's even more important. But knowing what you have, I think this is the most fundamental thing to really, really understand. Before you do anything advanced, know what you have.
And plot twist, Apiiro can help you with that, right?
I wouldn't imagine saying anything that won't lead you to say that.
All right, Warren, what's your thoughts? Yeah, I mean, I think actually Yonatan mentioned this earlier, and I know I've become a broken record for this, but it's start with your threat model. If you build or approach any problem without first thinking about why you're doing it, not only can what you're doing isn't going to necessarily be useful or relevant, it can even be harmful as far as your overall approach goes. So, concretely, what do we need to do? Why are we doing it? And then start looking at, okay, what are our options for implementing solutions? Because otherwise, I mean, you'll end up with the 6,000 Dependabot alerts and not knowing what to do. And the result may be developing your own platform that automatically increments, package versions versus knowing that, hey, we're getting lots of spam on our endpoints in the form of WP-admin, and we're not running any PHP stuff. It's not a DDoS attack, but it's someone's looking for an exposed WordPress instance or MongoDB or Elasticsearch. And if you've got that exposed, then you're going to have a problem. So as Yonatan said, the inventory of what your services are and how they're exposed to the internet is equally valuable for sure.
Right on. Excellent. Any other closing or parting thoughts on security before we move on to picks?
I'd say, alluding to a previous point that you made before, that security is a feature, and if you do the right thing, then people will appreciate it. Sometimes even more than doing the features.
No, I mean, I love that approach actually, because often people see it as the like a cost center to prevent something, and the best case scenario is that nothing happens, and so the ROI, is a hard justifier. But I think the missing part there is that actually the way you've implemented security has a lot of value that for your product, for your end users potentially, a better experience with SSO and login is a defining factor for companies, especially enterprises who want to be secure. Likewise, goes having the latest functions and features from your dependencies, being able to utilize them and not be stuck on legacy versions for fear of a security issue that just automatically gets pulled in, like using a platform like Apiiro, helps you get that. Helps you achieve that without getting stuck in fear land, or dedicating your resources in an area that's not your core competency.
Yeah, I think that's like one of the common things that I see with teams or departments that are traditionally seen as cost centers is changing that perspective that you're not a cost center, you're just bad at marketing. Because everything comes down to politics at some form or another. And so part of getting your team to not be seen as a cost center is by marketing your team and showing, hey, these are the security vulnerabilities that we closed down, that we were exposed to, or from a DevOps perspective, hey, here's how implementing this platform allowed the engineering teams to go from 15 deployments per day to 50 deployments per day in a safe and secure manner. So I think really learning to market your team helps give you mind share across the leaders of the company and brings additional focus. And with additional focus, you get additional resources.
I mean, last time we talked about product management, and I think this is closely connected to it. Like, you can even start before that, right? Like, if you're going to be rolling out features or functionality or a platform to your organization, what do the other engineering teams actually think about? Do they care about even being secure? Because if they're not already on that, then it's the same challenge as marketing to external customers. What problems are they trying to solve? And if security is not part of it, then you're really starting with an education approach, right? Like, here are the sorts of things that could happen because of how you set up your services. And if the organization hasn't aligned incentives, actually encourage them to be secure, then it's going to be an uphill battle.
Wait for them to get hacked and then go, okay. So now y'all are concerned about security? Oh, okay.
I mean, there were definitely some suspicious companies out there that were offering like DDoS protection, and as part of their actual operation, I mean, they were hugely malicious to start out with, but as part of their operations, they would go out and actually just DDoS customers and be like, hey, you got DDoS because you're not using our product. And I mean, it's a little bit suspicious if after a security incident, you immediately get someone showing up your door saying, hey, we can help you solve that problem now.
It's like the mafia style approach. They send some guys in to bash your store and then go, hey, it looks like you need some protection. Right on. So let's do some picks as we round this episode out. Warren, I've been picking on you, so I won't pick on you this episode. I'll actually start it off, and much to everyone who's a frequent listener surprise, my pick this week is going to be Platform Con, coming up this June, the 5-day virtual conference on platform engineering, where they will have some folks talking about security topics too, as they relate to platform engineering. And then my favorite part of the conference is at the end, I am going to be interviewing some of the speakers in a live Q&A session to close out the conference. And as I mentioned last week, if there are specific people you want me to talk to or specific questions you want me to ask, be sure and hit me up on Twitter or send me a DM or any other contact method, and I will filter and aggregate those and get those questions asked for you. So platformcon.com if you want to check that out. And that's my pick. So Warren, what have you got?
Yeah, actually, this is timely. It's going to be security related. I just got back from a conference in Germany last week where I was actually talking about the security journey we took at Authorus. And I got asked, well, how do I get into security? How do I become an expert? Is it just am I either completely don't know anything, or do I have to know everything? And the truth is, you just learn things over time. from different sources, and eventually one day you get to stand up on stage and start giving a presentation about security, even though you believe you don't really know anything. But I will say that there are a couple of great newsletters out there that I read myself. They may be too technical for some, others may be way beneath them, but I highly recommend the TLDR newsletter. Specifically, they have one on security, and there's also another one called the Cloud Sec List, which is oriented towards cloud security infrastructure. And they've been great. They touch on a lot of different topics, and you can go deep with the links that are in there, and can take you a long way, especially at the beginning of your security journey.
Right on. Awesome. How did your talk go, by the way?
Well, like usual, I'm sure I did terrible, but then everyone tells me how great it went. So I'll have to watch the video once it comes out online, which will probably be posted on the Authoress blog somewhere.
Right on. Awesome. All right, Yonatan, what you got for us for picks?
Okay. So I had something else, but Warren, I think I can maybe connect to what you said, because something that I feared for a long time happened at my family yesterday, where my son, who's a 12-year-old, came to me and said, Dad, I managed to hack the Google Dinosaur game and made it such that I can never lose. It's not that advanced. I think it came to him through YouTube or Instagram or something like that, where you just override the game over function or something like that, which is really nice. So it came to me as a shock, but it got me thinking, and I like alluding to you, Warren, you said how to start in the security business, maybe. So I think my pick is when it comes to kids, maybe start from the fundamentals. Not. It might be cool to show your friends in class that you can hack a game, but since yesterday I tried to show him like the fundamentals. What goes on there? What does it mean, a function? What does it mean to change it in runtime? Like maybe you should prevent that, maybe not. Like really have him understand what goes on there. I think it's really important for kids that can see in YouTube or whatever, TikTok, they're seeing really advanced things in life, not only in security or coding, but they're really pushed to go fast, and like having them understand the fundamentals. For a non-native English speaker, understand English, understand math, understand the concepts, and then go and hack the Pentagon, or I don't know. Do it.
No, we're not recommending that anyone does anything that would be
I do not
illegal.
condone that sort of behavior.
No, but that's a really great point, actually, because security is so vague as an individual idea that really defining for yourself what it even means to go into security, right? Like, are you interested in hacking things or even defending against attacks, which I think, we talked a lot about here, but or products that help you build up tools and whatnot. These are all fundamentally different areas.
For sure. Yeah. And I think there's like, just going beyond that, I think there's huge understated value in just having a basic understanding of how code works in a modern technology life that we live in now, because once you understand what's going on under the hood, I think you get a lot of perspective in how you interact with different companies, whether it's through their website or their application or their call center or whatever. Like if you have that basic fundamental understanding, I think you start to approach problems differently, even if you're not in a technical role.
Yeah. Like when you're talking to a sales rep or a customer support agent of a company, and you get an error on your screen that says like, unhandled exception, and you're trying to explain to them how their website is broken.
Right. Exactly. All right, cool. Yonatan, thank you so much for being on the show. This has been incredibly insightful. So I really appreciate you taking the time to join us.
Yeah, thank you so much for inviting me.
Yeah.
Great.
Yeah, happy to have you back on at any point. So let us know if that's of interest to you. Warren, thank you again for joining me here and co-hosting this with me. And to all the listeners, thank you all for listening. Love having y'all out there, and we will see y'all next week.